Okay, look, I know folks are probably going to keep coming in, and I may reset a little bit of this stuff as we go forward, but I do want to get started. Is again, this is going to be over twice as many participants than we've had in the past. I think that's a great thing. It shows the excitement and the interest and a lot of work on the part of Riverside to kind of brand this out to a broader group of people. And I think that's very attractive to me. And we talked a lot about who is going to be in this course. So I'm gonna start off kind of with a couple intro things. And then what I would like to do, ideally, we would get into each week's lecture, and hopefully people have watched it. But we will riff off the key topics of each week's lecture as much as we can. Now, it doesn't have to be that structured, and I would say this. A lot of you folks have passion or interest in this area. If you have a specific question that you've just been thinking about for a week, by all means ask it. It's great if it's going to apply to a certain percentage of people here, but this discussion is supposed to be dynamic, it's supposed to be less structured, and it's supposed to be interesting. So that means ideally put the phone away, engage, listen. It's cool if you want to listen. I'm totally down with listeners. If you want to engage verbally and ask a question, you can do that. If you want to ask a question on the chat, perfectly good. So I want to start a little bit by talking about this course and who it's for. It's not about me and my career or anything like this. Is actually about you and your career. And I believe controlled environment agriculture attracts a very unique kind of individual. It's somebody who can either be a biologist, plant biologist, it can be a data nerd, it can be an engineer, it can be a marketing person, it could be literally somebody who's so interested in food and food production and cooking and nutrition. That's what CEA encompasses. It literally encompasses so many aspects and so many different talents. I know this is a little technical, and we focus on the three main aspects of controlled environment that I introduced in lecture one. But you'll see as we go through these lectures, I want folks to be thinking about, like, do I fit in this space? Where could I fit in this space? And so here in my mind, I've been doing this for like over 30 years. I've been doing controlled environments. So my feeling would be this. You go through this course, let's say you absorb like half the information, and some of it's technical, but it's enough to make you realize that this is of deep personal career focus to you, and this is how you want to contribute to this sector of food production or growing or farming or high-tech farming. That would be like my dream, would be if the people here go through this course, they retain a fraction, some of the information, and become somewhat literate in a pretty complex, well, I would say non-standardized field that's kind of emerging, but determine where do you fit personally, and open your mind and be very open to the concept that, guess what? You don't have to be a PhD scientist. I'm not a PhD. You don't have to be, some greenhouse construction engineer expert. There are many, many opportunities in this field. So that's really, I think, for UC Riverside and myself, would be a big success if most of the folks here determine where they might fit in controlled environment ag. So that's kind of, hopefully that's not too preachy, but that's like a dream of the course. Okay. Now I just want to then touch on lecture one, but it's really the entire hypothesis, and it kind of summarizes my 30 years. There are three key components to this controlled environment system. For those of you who did watch the lecture, it's kind of the first thing I introduce. And even in my current role as CEO of Florigen, where I do advisory work all over the world for companies, it all comes back to these three things. This is what controlled environment agriculture really relies on, these three pillars. Number one is crop biology. Okay, so everyone here is like in the back of their mind, like, I want to grow flowers or ornamentals. I want to grow strawberries. I would love to do, I don't know, speed breeding on soybean. There's in the back of your mind, you've all had some interaction with farming or a crop. It's either your native crop from the country you came from or you saw. But crop biology is incredibly important because each crop has its own unique environment that you are trying to create in the controlled environment agriculture system. So crop biology is important. It doesn't mean you have to know every aspect about plant biology, but you have to understand, and we will get into this. We introduced it in lecture 1, and we will get into it in the future lectures. But what does each crop need? That is just so important. And you have to understand, right? Lettuce requires a completely different environment than tomato. And that's what I'm talking about when we talk about crop biology. So that's pillar 1. Pillar 2 is going to be your local climate, meaning where do you want to grow? And where are you located? Okay, a lot goes into that. Land prices, energy prices, access to labor, all of that kind of stuff comes into play when and if you're choosing a location to build a greenhouse. And that does integrate the crop requirements. And this is all kind of covered in lecture 1. If you want to grow lettuce, it requires a cooler climate and a lower light intensity than tomato. So ideally, you're going to be closer to the California coast. What does that mean? Unfortunately, it means really expensive land. Now, if you have to go inland and you want to grow lettuce, that means you're going to need more cooling technology. So just to get back to climate, we will go through, actually in the advanced course, we go very much into what is the specific seasonal climate of Riverside itself. I mean, most of you folks, if you're from SoCal, know, okay, it gets pretty hot in the summer. Yeah, and it gets kind of cool in the winter, but how much? It actually matters a lot to get reasonably detailed about the regional climate. So that's pillar number 2, regional climate. What is it like 12 months out of the year? And then the final one is technology, which is, okay, whether, if you're in a greenhouse, what technology is needed in that climate to achieve the crop needs? So again, those are the 3 components. It's crop biology, by regional climate, by greenhouse technology. So if you get a really cheap piece of land in Palm Desert and they were giving away land to greenhouse people when the cannabis boom was going, when you do that math, you're going to be like, wow, I'm going to need to get over 30 degrees of cooling inside that greenhouse in the summer. How do I do that? What greenhouse technology is needed for me to drop the temperature 30 degrees? And believe it or not, I hate to tell you this, the greenhouse manufacturers will build you anything they feel you can pay for. And so it's just a little bit of awareness that it's up to you to understand this basic framework of CEA. Is what do I want to grow? Where am I going to grow it? And what greenhouse technology do I need to be successful? And not to be downer, but I've seen too many times where tens of millions of dollars are invested in greenhouse facilities by highly sophisticated teams with investors, with CEOs and all of this kind of stuff. And nobody asks those simple 3 questions. What does my crop need? Where am I growing it? What's the regional climate every month of the year? and what is the appropriate greenhouse technology to make sure I can grow that crop and be successful. So that was a lot of info, but the key thing is, again, for folks to think about, their personal career path and how they may fit into CEA. And then those three pillars of controlled environment agriculture. Okay, I'm going to pause. Does anyone have a question, even like a logistical question about how the course runs? Or do you have a personal question about your product concept or a technical question?
I have a quick question, and that is, let's say that something happens and we're not able to attend a virtual class. Would we be able to view a recording? I guess my question is, are all the classes being recorded?
Kalista, did you hear that?
Yes, it is being recorded for you all as long as the instructor approves of it being recorded. So the last day will go with Dan, but we can always record it and have it dispersed at his discretion.
That's an awesome question. Thanks for that. I actually am completely fine with that because, look, I know you folks too are busy in life. You got a lot of stuff going on. This is an additional goal that you've taken on. We want to be as flexible as possible. So I love the idea of having these recorded. People can listen to them. Absolutely fine with me. I will say that attendance in this live discussion is part of the grade. And again, if you need to peel out early, fine. Email Kalista. If you can't make a meeting, that's fine too. Please just email ahead. We would like folks to attend 10 of the 12 live lectures. That would be great. And this discussion, we get out of that structured environment and people have different ways of learning. So since so much of this is online and, you just got to listen to me give those lectures, I think it's important to attend these lectures. It doesn't mean you need to be the most active participant at all. I would like if people attend 10 of the 12 and be engaged and listen at the very least. So
Hi, Daniel. Oh, sorry, I see a hand raised. Sorry, Crystal.
Oh, no worries. Was there? Oh, there's a hand. Is that Crystal?
Yeah, but he can go ahead of me. I'll be patient.
Sorry, it's Red Vincent. I watched the first lecture, really informative. Thanks for some feedback.
Oh yeah, people can mute unless you're speaking. That'd be great.
Yeah, sorry. So the question is at the end of the session, right? The thought process is, what does success look like in terms of someone looking to start, let's say, between low tech, mid tech, high tech? Like, do we have like an idea of level of investment, level of time, level of effort in order to contemplate what a model looks like to start, let's say, a CEA type adventure? So that's kind of like where I'm coming from, because, you know, background, I have a brown thumb, so I'm hoping to learn a lot from this, but I have a passion in terms of being able to pursue something like this, even if it's just for myself or just to go, full bore. So is that the expectation that at the end of this will be dangerous enough to be able to evaluate for us to move on, move forward with something like this, or even maybe even partner or learn or invest in someone that's actually looking to do this?
Awesome question. And it's Reg, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Reg.
Reg, right on. Yeah, that is a great question. And I'll say this, for some folks, the class is not detailed enough for some where they want to get into the accounting and the detailed math. We do not get into a lot of profit loss analyses. I think one of the challenges is that there is no standardization in this industry regarding the technology, and certainly not across markets. I love it that you mentioned low tech, mid tech, high tech, and just that alone will help you move forward. Um, I believe at certain point I give some ballpark numbers of cost per square foot of construction, for example, but we don't, for example, get into cost of labor and cost of utilities and things like that. So it is a big area, but I think you can come away from this course being able to literally have the conversation with the greenhouse vendor. That's the goal, would be that if you do decide, hey, can you give me a bid on a really simple hoop house because I want to grow hydroponic leafy greens, you can actually have that conversation and ask the right questions. And I want you to be able to just pressure test a little bit of what you get back. So it's a matter of navigating the industry enough to make the right decisions. And the truth is, yeah, going out to bid for numbers for capital improvements or structures, yeah, it's like anything else. It's like getting a bid on your house or remodeling your bathroom. In this case, though, instead of like, okay, what kind of shower head do I want? You're going to be like, what kind of heater do I need? And so I believe when you come out of this, whether you're an investor, a banker, a grower, or you want to deliver fresh grown local vegetables to the most high end restaurants in LA, you will be able to actually navigate the industry way, way better than if you're just reading like industry articles online or LinkedIn or something like that. So that would be the goal.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Crystal, I think you were, did you still have your hand up, Crystal?
Crystal had a question and you have one in the chat.
You can do the
Okay.
chat first. I have my toddler here. He's needing my attention. So I'll raise my hand when I'm ready again. Sorry.
Okay. And then I saw another. Oh, I see one. There you are. Go ahead.
Julius.
Julius, there you are. I recognize your picture, Julius. How are you?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I have a background in telecom and geology. And so I am in the process of putting up a small garden or maybe a small size farm in Nigeria. That's where I'm from. But because I'm retired now over here. So I'm thinking if there is a CEA low tech that I can visit in the area of Riverside, just to give me a clue of what I need basically to for a startup, and without going to the high tech all at once. That would really help. Is there's some place that one can visit or take a look at and try to measure, in this case, going back to the previous question, investments, regarding how much I have at hand and how much I'm willing to invest in the future. Is there a place that I can take a look at, or is there a recommendation of a live outfit, something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the question, Julius. Really specific, and I love to hear it because you want to do it for real. You have the passion, you're interested in it, and what's it going to take? Here's the challenge, and actually I talk about this in a future lecture. Southern California, believe it or not, does not have that much controlled environment space compared to other regions like Holland or Canada. And the reason is because Southern California has such good climate that open field agriculture actually dominates. There are definitely facilities in Southern California. I'm just saying they're not as many. And often, to be honest, they're kind of secretive about sharing their particular methods. It's unfortunate, but this is the way it is. I will say this. I will walk you through the next lectures exactly what low tech looks like device by device, and you will start to get an idea. I will say that I have helped the Gates Foundation in Nigeria and parts of Central Africa with exactly what you're talking about. It's actually for research purposes for cassava and cowpea, etc. But you are thinking correctly. We're talking about, and I've actually looked at the climate very carefully in Nigeria. It is a continental subtropical environment. You have the hot season is like March, April, May. Then you have the monsoon season. You get a little
Yes.
cooler in the winter, but fine. You're talking about a low tech structure with a certain percentage shade cloth to protect the plant during the hot season. But really, you're looking at a pretty ideal climate for a low tech facility, and happy to kind of talk even offline about what that number looks like per square meter. The other challenge I'll mention, and then I'll move on to the next, is that Central Africa is challenging for vendors. I have found it's quite challenging to get vendors to give proper design and construction numbers. And I'm not sure it's because, the European vendors are not operating there. It's kind of like who you know environment. So that's one little thing to think of. But I think if this is your home zone, you should be able to
Yeah, but
navigate that.
yeah, but Nigeria is located in the west part of Africa, so we have a lot of commercial and distributing industries going on over there.
Yeah,
See, so in my village over there, I think I drive by uh, uh, a low cost low tech um, experiment that is going on. I just haven't had the braveness, if you will, to stop by and take a look without them thinking I'm a competition. You know,
yeah,
I'm still new to that environment as far as growing up in the city and then trying to um, establish myself in the village because I've been away for so long. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I'm trying to do when I go back and forth
yeah.
and take and see what I can incorporate from what I learn here to what I can establish over there.
Great, great. Yeah, appreciate it. I would say be patient. I'm going to walk you through some low tech facilities. We do plan on having a tour of a mid tech greenhouse in Riverside,
Okay.
and we can even talk offline. So that's
Sounds
that's
good.
great. Yep,
Sounds
I'm
good.
going to move.
Appreciate
Yep,
it.
I'm going to keep moving. And I forgot to mention, I actually need to peel out about 6:20 from this call this evening. So even I have to peel out a little early. But I'm going to go to Moises. And then, Crystal, if you still want to ask your question, I'd love to hear it. No pressure. Moises is asking, is there a resource that you tend to use to investigate the crop growth requirements of a specific crop, maybe like an online source to get good plant growth requirements? That is a awesome question, and the answer is no. There is no single source that I'm aware of that will give you the what I would consider precise growth requirements of the crop you want to grow. You can start using AI. However, even when I have used it, what are the ideal temperatures for tomato? What comes back are not ideal temperatures. They are not optimal temperatures. So I hate to break it to you. It's a little bit of a mix of grower experience and curating the best research possible. And the problem is a lot of published, resources are not focused on farming. They're more focused on research conditions and things like this. So um, I hate to break it to you. I mean, there are general crop requirements you can find, no question. But when I start thinking, well, yeah, when I start thinking about precision horticulture, it's going to take just a bit of time. So there's no single source. And in fact, people who know what their crop targets are definitely don't share them. And actually, even in my climate modeling and my crop modeling, I hold those numbers pretty close because I've determined a lot of those numbers over, 3 decades of work. So I just not like giving them away. But it's a great question. Your head's in the right space. It will take some work. We'll definitely get into some numbers. I'm going to throw out some numbers I think will help you out a lot, Moises. Okay, Crystal, are you out there?
Yes,
Did
I'm
you
ready now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so at first I'd like to acknowledge that I appreciate you speaking candidly about the industry and, you know, some of the challenges with this being an emerging field. Much like you, I have a personal passion of encouraging young people to approach agriculture as an emerging industry that has a lot of potential and has grown so much, you know, even in the past 5 years. So with that being said, my role at UCR is I'm the community garden manager at the R Garden is what it's called on campus. So it's different than the botanical gardens. Ideally, the focus of it is to, I like to say, grow food and grow student leaders. So with that being said, we've got a couple of greenhouse options already existing, one being a failed solar greenhouse experiment, quote unquote, that is now just storage. So we're not using that optimally. And then we also have a greenhouse that has a hydroponic setup and some students from the College of Engineering who are interested in taking that project. So ideally from this class, I'll get some insight to guide them. But like I said, your candid ability to acknowledge, you know, where some of the industry intersects with research is where I'm interested in. So hopefully we can hone in on that. Not really a question, kind of a question. Yeah.
No, I think it's great to meet you, honestly. And I've been to that art garden, believe it or not, and I've seen that solar
Very
greenhouse.
cool. Oh, cool.
I think it was 2 years ago. I think the solar greenhouse would be a great place to bake bread because it has no cooling. And I'm sure
Yeah.
if you've been in there in summertime,
Yeah.
there's no cooling in there. And, you know, this whole concept of solar greenhouses is something I'm highly dubious of because why would you
UV.
block the sunlight and
Yeah.
convert it into a small amount of electricity when you should be using the correct amount of free sunlight and, you know, going a different path?
Exactly. I'd love to be able to
So,
leave this class and have like a recommendation to give them of how we can improve that. So I'm glad you're familiar and
yeah.
looking forward to the material as well.
Yeah, and I do jump into urban gardening and exactly what you described, Crystal.
Mhm.
And honestly, because look, I was in the world of ag biotech and R&D my most of my career, where
Sure.
we had crazy high budgets and we're building, a lot of stuff, and it wasn't for profit. We were basically doing research and pushing our whole pipeline through in terms of seed production for breeders.
Right.
So we didn't have that profit constraint. But what I'm surprised by is how much interest there is in urban farming and exactly what you described, which is, okay, let's actually grow food, let's eat food, let's spend time outside,
Mhm.
let's unplug and farm. Let's actually farm. And the power of that to, I mean, literally transform lives and communities
Yeah.
is something that is, I mean, it's part of our country's history. I think it's almost part of every country's history. When I travel all over, the amount of small gardens you see people have is remarkable. And I would say the US has the lowest frequency of that. And yet when people try it or introduce to the concept, it can serve as a hobby and it can turn into a business. We have a lot of examples of, for example, Southeast Asians up here in Yolo County near Sacramento that are growing the most amazing sweet strawberries and making a living doing it. And they're growing specialty crops and they're making a living doing it. And that's really inspirational. I would love to connect and hear more about that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your insight.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna do, let's see, I will do David Fung, and then I will move to the music changing. I recognize that name, but David, will your class help us start a basic greenhouse so we can start in our backyards? I want to have some actionable takeaways from this class that I can start. Um, good question, and I get this question a lot, which is about these backyard greenhouses. I think people have seen that Costco's, even sells these small greenhouses. Um, it's a nice idea. Um, these really small greenhouses are really, in my mind, appropriate for very cold climates. And the problem is when think of your car is kind of like a greenhouse, and think about it's July, you're in Palm Springs and you park it in the grocery store, you close it up and you go inside and go shopping, and then you open it up, it's just baking hot. The smaller that box is. So, in general, we don't cover a lot about small backyard greenhouses. They're notoriously hard to do much in unless you're in Alaska or a really cold, cloudy climate. And that's because they're basically hard to cool. And most of the kits that you will buy, in fact, you can buy all kinds of kits online of really cheap materials, do it yourself, put it together, etc. The smaller they are, the less useful they're going to be. On the positive side, I will give you a lot of information around lower tech structures, and it can be a shade structure. It can be a poly structure with open walls to help you get through winter. It can be a shade house that'll help you get through summer. Those are all things that you will start understanding as we go through this course. And again, it depends on where you're located and what do you need to do. Do you have an ice cold winter and you need some level of heating if you want to grow through the winter? Or are you in a really hot location and you need to understand shade percentages? And then it would be like, okay, you want to grow lettuce through the summer? I'm going to need more shade than if I want to grow cucumber or any other thing. So I think there will be a lot of practical information that will go into your actionable takeaways, even for a smaller garden backyard type project. Yes, for sure. Okay, where was
Hey, Dan. Thank you. It's Josiah from Music Changing Lives. Took the class with you, I believe, a year and a half or so ago. So thank you for
Oh, that's right. That's right.
your knowledge. I missed the lab, and I think that's what I really needed to finish. Wanted to connect and see if I needed to do all of the classes again, or if I could just do the lab and focus there.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that's going to be potentially Francis or Calista who will know about those logistics of actually doing it. And again, I know the last time it was run, it was tied in with a tissue culture program, and that had a very intense lab section. Remember,
Mm,
the controlled environment ag, this section in the two courses does not really have a lab section. It's something that people wanted. And
yeah.
we were actually talking with the R Garden about, can we get at least some space there and have people seed up some seedlings and do a test of substrates and do some things like that, but it never happened. So these two
Well,
courses are all online.
absolutely yes. The answer is yes, at least for me,
So,
for now.
hey, that's what I'm talking about, Crystal. I'm gonna be your test subject. Come on, and I'd love to get my student club there to help as well,
Yeah,
if we can.
definitely.
But on another level too, Dan. So I'm now into this thing of edible reforesting, large scale project that I'm doing in LA. So will we touch on outdoor as well, controlled environments and things like that, and how to do like air scrubbing with trees and fruits and vegetables type stuff.
I hear you. So I will say again, open field agriculture is just part of California's history, right? So we just
Right.
need best open field climates. We don't get as much into open field agriculture. However, every garden program needs a nursery, meaning where do you seed your plants up? Where do you get them through the seedling stage for transplant into the gardens? So
Right.
there will be certain aspects of the course that would enhance what you were talking about. If you're propagating trees, what's the best way to do that?
Right.
And oftentimes that's in a shade house. It could be with supplemental lighting. It could be with enhanced fertigation. You could have to experiment with different types of substrate.
Right.
So while we don't really get a lot into open field agriculture, I'll say this: that urban gardening piece benefits tremendously from a greenhouse nursery, for example, to have uniform, healthy, vigorous seedlings. And in fact, a lot of times you're establishing those seedlings when the weather's bad outside and you're getting a jump start. So you're ready when the weather turns good in Riverside around, let's say, April 1st. You've already got plants ready to go and go into the ground because you've got a greenhouse and you get a 6 week head start. That's the kind of way, like, yeah, you should be thinking about your particular, open field goals,
Yeah, yeah, and really would love to. I know you didn't get the chance to tour out, but if you're ever in town, show you the growth that we've had over at our Uptown San Bernardino Urban Garden. That's the I was doing the rose bushes back then, and man, it's flourishing. I mean, I got over 51 different species of fruit trees already, 30 different species of vegetables, and about 60 different species of roses. So, I'd love to
That's
show you what we're
that's
doing
right. I
outdoors.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember Josiah. Yeah, I remember. Okay. Um, I will be making some trips down and love. It's great to hear that you are in that role still and you're making great progress. I hope you can learn something more on the initial question. I would maybe ping Francis and Kalista about exactly what you're talking about, the requirements.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Dan, sorry to interrupt. I put the information in the chat for anybody who has a question about any previous lab, for them to contact Frances there. So her email's right there.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, I'm scanning. I'm scanning participants. These are so far have been really great questions, pretty much on topic.
You have another chat question for you, Dan, from Clint.
Okay. Clint jumps in with hello. You mentioned an advanced course. Could you talk about that a little bit more? Thank you. So yeah, the way, just so people know, yeah, it's a really good question because it's probably the first class and people are wondering like, oh wow, already is this for me? Can I do it? I think you can do it. And here's how it's going to work. We have these short lectures. They're literally 30 minutes. Some are even like 23 minutes. Some might be 35 minutes, but they go pretty quickly. They're literally 10 content slides with a handful of major concepts. So 30-minute lecture and then a 10-question multiple choice quiz. And I would say of the quiz, half of them are kind of common sense questions and half require you to really pay attention. That's that's how I am. I think you gotta listen to the lecture and actually read the questions. But again, a 10-question multiple choice quiz should go quick, and then there's a 90-minute lecture discussion. So that is the time commitment. It's not a lot. I know everybody here can do it if there's interest. The basic course is 6 of those lectures, and it lays out this initial concept of the CEA system, crop biology, regional climate, and greenhouse technology, and we lay the foundation in that area. We kind of weave our way through with some real life examples of farms, real life examples of climate, regional climate, and real live examples of what different crops need, from berries to leafies to cannabis to fruiting crops. that gives you the foundation. The advanced course, then we do take it to that next level, which is things like temperature and light sensors and reading the output from temperature and light sensors. We talk about in more detail issues in Riverside specifically. Like if you wanted to buy a piece of land in Riverside, what about water quality? How does that affect our fertigation program? Because we do talk about fertilizer, crop nutrition, crop substrate, and water quality affects that quite a bit. Is the pH high? Do you have a lot of hard water? Do you have to treat that water before adding your fertilizer? So in the advanced course, we do get into, I would say, more specifics related to the key aspects of growing. And I think if you do fine in the fundamentals course, the advanced course will be not that much harder. It will be more detailed. We start talking about actual units of light. Like when people talk about light, how much light is in a greenhouse, I show you how to measure light and what kind of light sensor you would need to walk into a greenhouse and understand what is light transmission percentage and how do you measure that? What units are there and how do I translate that to what my crop actually needs? So that's an example of the advanced course. Again, I think the goal is this. So another way of thinking about it is this. If people here have not had any exposure to CEA, that's fine. I try to make it as kind of, basic and fundamental as possible. And as I said before, you don't have to retain all the information. You can go through the lectures, take the quizzes, go to discussion, do well, retain half the information at the end, and still be able to navigate this industry. Meaning, if you're interested in a job and you want to look at working at a company, you can actually read the requirements and understand what they're talking about. You want to start a farm or a business, you'll be able to go through and navigate how to get bids on a greenhouse, how, what kind of fertigation system you're going to need to ask about. Will you be able to custom design your own fertigation? No, probably not. But you'll be able to work with your local horticulture vendors to get the right systems and ingredients that you need. That is kind of the goal. All right. I'm not seeing any questions right now.
Crystal again.
Yes, I have another question. I was wondering if you could speak more to what you were saying regarding crop biology and field experience. It's one of those, I think, catch-22s where most people who grow food know that you need to have your hands in the soil every season to really learn. And, you mentioned like having some of that crops specific knowledge being, cards held close to their chest. So I just wonder, how you see that like kind of progressing, and is that, in your opinion, maybe something that is like the legacy of how agriculture has been done, normally, I guess, generationally, commercially, I'm interested on your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's an important point and question, and I believe we touch on that. That's, I think what you're talking about goes into the whole concept of farming, and that is people who actually go to the farm and grow the crops. And again, just so folks know, I went to UC Davis. I got a bachelor's, barely made it through, but I started growing hydroponic strawberry. And that's where I fell in love with greenhouses, and I love the hands-on aspect. Now, this is one aspect of it. However, it's a big one, which is we need growers, we need cultivators, and we need people who like working with their hands, just as you said, Crystal. So I'm going to be really honest about this, in that The people who do the best in this industry and the people who enjoy this industry are people who have experience on the farm or working with plants. And I'll say this, back when I was running greenhouse operations, the most successful research associates that I hired were mostly from the landscape world. Okay, these were people who worked all day with their hands and their bodies, and they walked and they looked at plants and they made observations, and they were able to translate those observations into actions like, wow, those roses look kind of pale. I'm going to give them some NPK. Or, wow, all of these plants are done blooming. I need to prune them back, so we're going to get another flush. A lot of agriculture is about observation, and everyone talks about AI, and everyone talks about robotics and things like this. The truth is, I think every single farmer or cultivator is their own, artificial intelligence gathering device. You're making observations, you're gathering data, you're making notes, and you're doing actions. And you're either diagnosing pest problems, you're diagnosing nutritional problems, you're diagnosing irrigation problems, and you do have to find those solutions. And the more experience you get, the more time you're on the farm, the more time you're going to be successful. And the funny thing is, even after a long time, I still get frustrated at times. I still make a wrong decision. I think I talk about diagnosing problems in controlled environment. And that is truly, it's kind of like being a vet. Like, what is wrong with this cat or dog? You are literally like a doctor. And I know they've talked about plant doctors, but you gain that from working on the farm, from going through several cycles, from making mistakes, from taking notes, and from learning. And those are skills. If you want to be specifically a cultivator or you want to work with cultivators, I think those skills will come out of this course and from these discussions. And I have to say, some of the best, my old team were all field workers, also from Michoacan, Mexico. And these were women who worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and they were getting like 50 hours a week for that kind of labor. But they had learned how to observe plants and how to farm, and those turned out to be some of the hardest working, smartest, most successful plant growers that I ever had, and a lot of other ones came out of the landscape industry. Now that's one side, and I won't lie, I'll say I was a grower for 20 years, so dirty, hot, sweaty work for 20 years before I went into full innovation for 10 years. Soft spot in my heart, incredibly important. And yes, we need more people with hands-on experience for sure. On the other hand, my entire career, I worked with people who didn't know much about greenhouses, who were data scientists, and I needed their help. For example, look at my sensing data, and they needed my help to understand crop biology. So one key thing is, again, where do you fit in this saying? You don't have to be a grower. You don't have to be a plant biologist. You have to understand the basics, though, so you can have a conversation with the plant biologist. If you're an engineer and you want to design or invent a better temperature sensor, you're going to have to be able to have a meaningful conversation with a cultivator about their crop, about the location, and about the greenhouse to be successful. So that's where you get this, this conversation and this interchange.
I'm actually so relieved to hear that, because there's supposed to be precision ag development adjacent to the R garden, and like you mentioned, I don't have the pressure that, okay, if the farm fails, then I'm not going to get a wage. Like, I will still get paid, but ultimately, what the intersections you're describing is what I feel like will allow UCR students and undergraduates in all of the colleges across campus to connect and, find that value, and then hopefully bring back that ag history of UCR and the importance of field work.
Yeah. So, Crystal, just so you know, I have been saying this to leadership at ECR since 22,
Good.
and I've been saying it my whole career. And honestly, I don't know what it is, but I know, look, it's a fact that it's like, what are those weird greenhouse people doing? And why are they asking for a few dollars to get new irrigation? That's weird when the entire basis of our food production comes from people growing food. And so I am a very strong advocate for hands-on, real world stuff. And it's not that hard and it's not that expensive, but we do have to get on the radar, like you said. So, um, and I think I mentioned this when we get into low tech, mid tech, high tech in more depth. All of the headlines and all of the big investment money is, guess what, is going to these vertical farms, these ultra high tech vertical farms. Well, guess what? Guess who's out of business? Plenty is out of business in Compton. Bowery is out of business in New York City. App Harvest is out of business in Kentucky. All of these ultra high tech automated farms that literally burned billions of dollars but got a whole bunch of fancy headlines from the venture world are gone. I'm sorry. And many of us predicted that. And that's why I wanted to make this class as feasible as possible, because I have done innovation my entire life, got a ton of patents on plant method production and a bunch of other stuff. Innovation to me means it has to be feasible and it has to be scalable. And so I do talk about innovation, I do talk about disruptive technology, but it has to be feasible, meaning it has to solve a real problem. And it has to, at the end of the day, for a commercial farm, it has to have a return on investment. And I will say that there's a lot of talk, for example, on robotics. You'll see it all over the place. And robotics are making tremendous progress in open field agriculture. In controlled environment, they have not gone there. True robotics. Yes, there is automation. Yes, there are trolley systems. Yes, there are conveyor belts. Are there robots walking through picking strawberries? No, they're not. But you're going to see a lot of articles in this world about that. So when I don't touch on that, to be honest. I touch primarily on what I consider to be feasible, cutting edge technology, state of the art technology, proven technology that is beneficial to this industry and for food production.
Thank you.
Now it's a really good question.
You have one more, Gregory Williams, raising their hand.
Okay. Gregory.
Hello, Mr. Daniel.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Gregory.
Okay. So I don't have a lot of experience. I have over 10 acres of land out in the desert. And I'm trying to figure out a system that I can use out there to be able to grow, to create the climate that I need to grow my own vegetables, to create a farm system out there, because it's kind of like a sandy area out there in Newberry Springs. However, and the crop out there is pistachios. I know that to be a fact there, right? That's the crop that's most common in alfalfa. But I guess what I want to do is I was looking at the low tech systems here, and I just want to know if that would be something that's feasible. Should I use, since it's hot in the summer, should I use a greenhouse? Or I was hearing you say something about the shaded area, making it shaded area. How do I do that and be successful in that area, being in the desert?
Yeah, perfect question, Gregory. And I think you're going to be happy. I think you're going to be pretty happy going through this course because I'm dealing with that exact question. I mean,
Fantastic.
not your exact question and crop, but yeah, we go through those steps.
So we do handle that. Okay.
We do handle that, and I'll riff on this because it's such a relevant question that I'll riff on it right now. Time check, by the way, we're at 6. We got about 20 minutes left before I got to peel out. Your question, is the question, is everyone's question, which is, I've got land here. What should I do with it? How can I be successful in that location? Last December, I was actually in near Oman in the Arabian Peninsula and in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which talk about desert. I mean, that place is baking hot for 5 months out of the year. I did a quick climate analysis. 5 months of the year, it's well over 110 degrees as the high, and the night temperature is around 80. So absolutely brutal environment. And in fact, they don't grow vegetables for 5 months of the year. They're really maybe growing vegetables 6 months and winding it up because it's just too hot. On the other hand, I actually think there is potential, even in that environment, with the right technology to be successful growing vegetables. And in that situation, what I start thinking about is, how much shade can you apply in a very hot, bright environment that allows the crop to still grow with the minimal amount of light from shading and still be in a reasonable temperature range? Get it? So again, you're in a hot, bright environment. You're going to be using shade in a low-tech structure to protect the crop. What do those numbers really look like? Are you going to use 50% shade? Is that okay? Will the crop have enough light if you apply 50% shade cloth? Or are you going to push it up to 80% shade cloth? I mean, I've seen situations in Arizona where they're applying 90% shade cloth. And I'll say, in certain parts of Africa, I've seen 70% shade. And the question for me is that too much shade? And will that get you the cooling you need? So those are the specific questions you should be asking. And we will actually go through some of those, because just shade cloth alone, whether it's an automated shade cloth or one that you put on during the warm season yourself, it comes in every percent imaginable, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up, okay? And so you're asking the exact right question, Gregory, which is, how if I'm going to grow in a hot, bright climate, depending on what crop I have, what percent shade cloth do I buy? And what's amazing to me is how often even greenhouse vendors basically guess and say, well, this guy's in the desert, let's just give him 50% shade. That's what other people have done, or that's what everyone else does. I would like to be a little better than that, which is, as the investor, as the owner, you're able to understand, okay, I want to grow this type of vegetable, and I'm in this kind of environment. This is what percent shade cloth I need to give myself a chance of success. Do you mind if I ask you what vegetables you're interested in, Gregory?
Well, I'm interested in all vegetables. I'm interested in changing the diet, but what I love growing, like, I'm in my backyard, I'm growing collard greens, and I started kind of in the climate, in the cooler climate, and then then it changed. So it's been going back and forth. So some of my collard greens seeded, flowered. So I got a bunch of seeds here. And then they start flourishing. Some of them start flourishing, and I just had a big pot of them a couple days ago, and they were delicious. However, I know collards, like you were saying earlier, regional climate is very important, understanding the region that you're in. And and that's part of the CEA system. It's the regional client, right? So I know that those collars need to be not too hot, but in a colder environment to make them, from my research, to make them sweeter, taste better, and to grow. Because right now they're at a standstill, because the climate keeps changing.
Got it.
So leafy
Got it.
vegetables. Leafy vegetables, to answer the question clearly, leafy vegetables, beets, root vegetables, all types of vegetables. I'm trying to design a little farm on my land so that we
No,
can be
that's perfect.
self-sufficient.
No, that's perfect. And like I said, right, we're focused mostly on controlled environment, but we do get into crop targets and we do get into what temperature requirements there are. Now, collard greens is a brassica. I grew brassica for years and years, and it was actually canola for seed production and oil production, but it was brassica. So you've already seen the mechanism of early flowering, and you don't want to eat flowers, you want to eat leaves. And so you want to avoid stressing that plant and forcing it into flower. Brassica, like onion, is a little bit one of those weird ones where if you plant it the wrong time of year, you'll never get an edible crop. You'll just get a flower. Broccoli is an example of one of those where if you plant it the wrong kind of year, the wrong time of the year, you'll just end up with flowers instead of a broccoli head. Same with cauliflower. Um, you know what? There was an earlier question about, is there a general resource about crop growth requirements for gardening specifically? And I would say for vegetable gardening specifically, almost every region that I'm aware of in California has a master gardeners program. So like Sacramento has this, Sacramento Master Gardeners Association or program. Just search Master Gardeners in the region you are. And I'm thinking you're going to find a group. And those groups have actually mapped out really nicely the planting dates for all of the crops you're interested in. And that is a great, great guideline. And again, it applies to open field, small garden, but it will help you determine when you will want to seed up those crops in a nursery, whether it's indoor or shade house or a poly house, when to seed those up so you're ready to go for that transplant date. So please, if folks here are interested in being self-sufficient, home garden, all that kind of stuff, I would look up master gardening programs in your region. Julius, did you have something? Oh, you're on mute. Take yourself off mute.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So my question is, I have a little garden in my front yard, and I have successfully many seasons of tomato growth, and it just happens that this season I have this invasion of animals, gophers, raccoons, and cats all of a sudden. Is there a basic thing to a basic um, preventional method of in making these things go away? You don't get close to my garden. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to relate it to the low tech, where you don't have your plants above the ground, because the gopher just come under the ground and do damage to the crops.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't get too much into like animals or mammals like consuming crops, but it is a problem. Their gophers can destroy the whole plant in 1 second. So, I mean, in that case, you're talking about physical barriers. Okay. And some people want to grow and they have deer. and deer will come in and eat everything. So in that case, you're talking about an 8 foot high fence, a strong fence. If you're talking about persistent gophers, those are tough. And that's a whole art form of how to catch them. And I will say in controlled environment, greenhouses, a lot of times in mid-tech or low-tech, there is a gravel floor. And you can have potentially, mice or rats coming in and so on and so forth. So I would say regular pest control for larger animals is normal. Trapping is going to be one thing for rodents, and physical barrier like a fencing for larger animals is something, yeah, unfortunately you have to consider. Yeah, there's a funny American film called Caddyshack. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yes.
yeah,
Yes,
about the golf course and the
that's right.
gophers. So it
Bill
kind of makes
Murray.
me laugh when I think of gophers. Bill Murray has
Bill Murray.
made a whole,
Yes.
yeah, it's a pretty funny movie, but no, it's a real question, and that's part of farming. It's brutal. I mean, I'm curious what you have over in Nigeria. What kind of
I have a lot of cassava, and I took some cantaloupes over there this past December, and they did well, except it was just experimental, So I'm just trying anything right now. Before this whole course came along, I'm sure this is going to help me to sort things out better.
I think it will. I think it will answer some of your questions, and I think it's great that you have this opportunity,
Yes,
and you're gonna be thinking a lot about what you want to grow and when you're going to plant it, and getting a successful crop. It's exciting to hear about.
yes, I appreciate that.
Um, okay. Any other questions I'm missing?
I do have a question from Muriel Samuels. One is, it just went to me, so I guess I have to read it. Is this the class, and how it will be each week? And then you have another one from Music Changing Lives, Chicken Wire. Oh, something about chicken wire and bead bearers. But is this how the class is going to be each week? Is what Muriel is asking.
Yeah, yeah, like we said, each week there's going to be one lecture, about 30 minutes. There's going to be one quiz. It's 10 multiple choice questions, and then this discussion, which is about 90 minutes. And the discussion is part of the grade. We want to see people attending at like 10 of the 12 discussions. If you can't make it, please email ahead of time. And yeah, at the very least, put down the phone and listen to this discussion and try and retain some information, because this is, for me, really interesting. We're covering some things that are definitely out of the lecture, but I'm getting to understand people's interest, specifically what they want to hear. And actually, my conclusion is a lot of this is so related to the course content. It makes me really happy to hear that the questions are very similar to the content. So I think most people who ask questions are gonna be excited for each lecture. I really encourage people to keep up on those lectures. Don't wait to the very end, and just do it. Just boom, just sit down, watch that lecture, take that quiz, and then jump into this discussion. Hey, see Clint. Clint's hand up. Go for it, Clint.
So with like traditional farming, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So with traditional farming, row crop and all that, you have crop rotation. With hydroponic, with say tomatoes and stuff, there's determinate and indeterminate. Is it good to rotate those out as well, or kind of let them like with what is indeterminate, they can go as long as the environment's good. Is there at a certain point you want to cut that out and start fresh, or what are your thoughts on stuff like that with the rotation of the crops
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
hydroponic setting or greenhouse setting?
yep. Now I'm trying to remember. I may have even touched on indeterminate, determinate tomato in a lecture, or I may have covered it in a discussion. I'm having trouble remembering specifically. I think I may have even covered that concept, but that falls to me under the idea of genetics, and that falls under plant biology. So, what varieties are you going to plant? Super, super important. And I think where I talked about determinate tomatoes versus indeterminate was time systems, right? So when we talk about vine crops in a greenhouse like tomato or cucumber or melon, generally they are trained upwards. They're not laid flat on the ground. So plant architecture is a huge topic and it falls under genetic selection. And I'm telling you, Clint, you know this, it can make or break your situation. And as you mentioned, indeterminates have the advantage of never terminating and continuous fruit production over time. In, I'll say this, in both high-tech Dutch systems and mid-tech or low-tech Spanish systems in southern Spain, they both plant indeterminate tomatoes. The initial installation of the crop, meaning the transplant of those indeterminate tomatoes, is a big deal. It takes, boom, you got to prepare the media, the substrate, get the crop in, get it established. That's after you do all the sanitation to make sure you're free of diseases and all of that other stuff. When you install that tomato crop and it's indeterminate, you may have that crop in place for a year or even longer, because as long as that plant is well fed and well taken care of, it will keep producing tomatoes. So indeterminates are kind of the industry standard. And as you know, indeterminates get very tall, and that's where we start getting into tying systems. What kind of support system do you need for a tomato that gets that tall?
Yeah.
That's one of those exact decision points I want people to understand. Now, if you go with a determinate tomato, that's going to be a more bushy type. That's a benefit in terms of tying and architecture. You still will have to support it, but it's not going to get as tall as an indeterminate. So it's going to be a bush type. It's going to terminate, and you're going to have a flush of tomatoes. They're generally going to mature more at the same time than an indeterminate. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you only have a narrow window in your climate and you want to go with a determinate. You want to get a big flush of tomatoes. You want to hit the market or eat them and be done with it. The trouble with the downside of determinate is that once they're done, they're done. You have to rip the whole thing out, clean the whole place, and do another installation, compared to an indeterminate, which can remain in place for over a year.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Have you grown, Clint? Have you grown both determinate and indeterminate tomato?
Yeah, right now I'm currently experimenting. I have a couple of different ones going. I have a little greenhouse set up in the backyard. I got into hydroponics about 10 years ago. There's a lot to learn. Like I said, even that first video I watched, there was, about the whole climate thing. It didn't ever even dawned on me to, reference stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's just one of them things I'm just trying to figure out, which would be,
Yeah.
if you do commercially, why, which one would be better, like, indeterminate or determinate, just for, the long run. But like I said, obviously they can grow and grow and grow. And then obviously one has, a direct time when it's going to end. And then you got to start all over again.
Yeah. And I think from okay, from a commercial perspective, they kind of have a different set of priorities, but for the scale you're talking about, urban gardening scale, I
I'm
think
going
the
to
big
scale up and eventually get to that commercial level. hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even if it's an acre, I think one of the biggest considerations, and we talk about this, is plant architecture. How big, how tall is it going to get? And then um, what kind of support structure do you need for that? And I think there are a lot of great genetics that are determinate, and determinate can be a really good choice for particular growers versus indeterminate. I've grown mostly indeterminate tomatoes in my garden. Um, and basically, I have a tie system that I've used for 20 years, and they get up to about 6 feet tall. And then it's like early October, and then like productivity goes way down. So they're done by that point. I'm just hoping to get one more harvest in October up here in Northern California, and then I'm done. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, I think architecture is a big component. Okay,
Thank you.
wow, it is. Yeah, yeah, no, great questions. So unfortunately, I do need to peel out. I'm gonna peel out a little early. I hope you'll forgive me, but I do gotta run. Um, hey, I mean, overall, I have to say these are great questions, and these are more questions. Even for the number of people, this is more interaction. I'm being honest. This is better interaction than some of the previous ones. So keep it going. Honestly, keep thinking. Jump into lecture 2. Finish up lecture 1 if you haven't. I think this is great. And Kalista, thanks a ton. Francis, thanks a ton for the questions. For like the logistical logging in, base camp, all of that registration stuff. We just have a great team. Do not hesitate, and don't let that logistical part be like the barrier from learning here. If you need help, just jump out and ask, and we'll hopefully get you the help you need. So,
Thank you, everybody.
okay.
Thank you, Dan. This was great. This was actually really good. I'm really impressed.
I know you're growing too, Kalista, so you're listening.
Yes, I'm listening. Anybody,
Yeah.
if you need my help, our information is on Basecamp. Email me, text me, email Dr. Reyes, text her. We're all here. Dan has a question. You have a question for him, he will definitely respond to you. So we got 1 minute left. Dan, take it away.
Yeah. Well, no, just thanks again, everyone. I really appreciate the questions, great questions and interest. I feel like we are so on topic. I'm pretty excited. And by the way, I want as much honest feedback as possible to make this thing better. Is it too technical, not technical enough? Am I missing stuff? Absolutely. Give me honest feedback.
Thank you all. I'm going to end the meeting now. Is that okay? Everybody
That's
good?
great.
Okay.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.